After transmigrating into the role of the disabled villain's daughter, I stop him from seeking death every day. He drinks poisoned wine, so I take a sip first and shout, "Dad, this poison has expired, it tastes awful." He tries to slit his wrists, so I replace the dagger with a candy figurine in advance. "Dad, if you're going to die, at least be a sweet ghost." He attempts to ignite explosives, so I secretly swap the gunpowder for flour and put up a banner celebrating Dad for living another day. He was covered in flour, his temples throbbing. Finally, he no longer wanted to die, and he spun his wheelchair so fast it seemed to spark, chasing me all over the yard. Suicide was put on hold. He wanted to beat someone up first. When I crossed over, the story was already nearing its end. The male lead, Shen Yanji, supported the new emperor's ascension to the throne and became the Marquis of Yongning, second only to the emperor. The antagonist, Xiao Yunjing, was left with disabled legs and became a useless person. And I, a 6-year-old little beggar, I am nothing at all. I closed my eyes, stretched out my legs, and started to give up on the spot. Just let it all end. I'm exhausted. Just when I thought I was about to starve to death on the streets, I was suddenly snatched away and thrown in front of the Xiao residence. That person said I was a romantic debt from Xiao Yunjing's past and asked if I wanted to live. If I did, I should cling to him. Well, I've really hit the jackpot with this one. As expected, the identity of a time traveler is never ordinary. I rubbed my hands together, eager to give it a try. A few minutes later, I successfully entered the Xiao residence. The butler led me, running excitedly and shouting, "Master, you have a daughter, you can't die." I was puzzled. Xiao Yunjing, who was holding a bowl of poisoned wine and about to drink it, was puzzled. "Bad guy. Why didn't you tell me the villain is determined to die?" We interrupted his attempt to end his life. Xiao Yunjing set down the poisoned wine, wheeled his chair in front of me, and scrutinized me with sharp eyes. "Where did this little liar come from? You're so ugly, yet you dare to come here pretending to be my child." I am speechless. How presumptuous. With a mouth like his, why bother drinking poison? Just a touch of his lips could poison himself to death. Nowadays, anyone dares to step on me. Guards, drive him out with a beating. Me, I quickly threw myself forward, crying, and grabbed the hem of his pants. "Father, you really are my biological father. I went through so much hardship to find you. Please don't drive me away." The butler also promptly stepped in to speak up for me. "Master, it's been verified. The young master is the real deal." As he spoke, he took out a stack of paper evidence that the mysterious person who sent me here had prepared for me. Xiao Yunjing took it with a cold expression, then read it while questioning his life. After who knows how long, he rubbed his face and sighed to the heavens. What a sin! At the same time, my stomach chose an inopportune moment to growl, gurgle. I rubbed my stomach and smiled awkwardly. "Dad, I'm hungry. I want steamed crucian carp, spicy shrimp, crab meat lion's head, braised pork knuckle, steamed pork ribs." Xiao Yunjing interrupted me with a blank expression. "Kid, you came too late. I'm going to die." I hurriedly cried out, "No, what will I do if you die?" He thought for a moment. "Then you come along too." I am speechless. He sighed. "If there's anything in this mansion that catches your eye, take it for yourself, and then go back to where you came from." After saying that, he turned his wheelchair around and went back inside, picking up that bowl of poisoned wine again. I shuddered and chased after him at the speed of an 800-meter sprint to show my loyalty. "Father, on the road to the underworld, your daughter will scout the way for you first." While he was reviewing the evidence earlier, I saw the butler secretly swap out the poisoned wine. I swiftly grabbed the large bowl and gulped it down in one go, unaware of the truth. Xiao Yunjing was so frightened that his face turned pale. When he saw me standing straight without any reaction, he froze again. I chuckled. "Dad, this poison has expired, it tastes awful." He let out an almost imperceptible sigh of relief, then flew into a rage and scolded, "Nonsense, you really are something." Before I could finish hearing his words, I suddenly felt dizzy, my vision went dark, and my body fell straight backward. Xiao Yunjing was greatly alarmed, staggering from his wheelchair to rush toward me, his sleeves stirring up a flurry of panicked wind. "Daughter." The next day, I woke up from hunger. As soon as I opened my eyes, Xiao Yunjing was by my bedside. His eyes bloodshot and dark circles under them as heavy as a panda's. Seeing me awake, She immediately started scolding. How long has it been since you last ate? To the point of fainting from hunger. If you were hungry, didn't you know to speak up earlier? No matter how down and out I am, I wouldn't be short of a bite for you, I weakly replied. But I did say it. I said I wanted to eat braised pork. No, he cut me off impatiently. You can only eat bland food right now. So he brought me a bowl of porridge. Drink it. The bland white porridge looked completely unappetizing. I instantly made a bitter face, staring at him pitifully. He kept a straight face. First, drink the porridge. The day after tomorrow, you can have steamed crucian carp, spicy shrimp, crab meat lion's head, braised pork knuckle, and steamed pork ribs. My eyes lit up immediately. Thank you, Dad, you're the best. Dad, he snorted coldly, don't overthink it. I just don't want you starving to death in my house, adding another crime to my name. His mouth is truly both venomous and stubborn, but I'm magnanimous and won't argue with him, so I lower my head and obediently drink the porridge. Seeing that I've finished the porridge, Xiao Yunjing turns his wheelchair and prepares to leave. I was afraid he might go looking for death again, so I quickly asked, Dad, where are you going? Without turning his head, he replied, adult matters. Children shouldn't interfere. The day after tomorrow, I want Dad to eat with me, otherwise I won't be able to eat. He paused, then reluctantly said, okay. I smiled. This villainous father of mine seems pretty decent. After Xiao Yunjing left, the butler uncle and the shadow guard uncle came in, fussing over me with all sorts of concern. Looking at their matching panda eyes, I couldn't help but ask curiously, what happened to you two? I can understand why the villainous father has panda eyes. He probably stayed up all night watching over me, but why do these two look the same? The butler forced a smile and said, it's nothing, just stayed up all night with the master making plain kanji, and only succeeded on the 8th try. The shadow guard smirked and said, it's nothing, just a small fire in the kitchen that I spent the whole night putting out. Finally, the two exchanged a glance and said in unison, as long as the master doesn't try to end it all, it's all good. I am speechless. Are you two performing a comedy routine? Also, I only managed to secure 2 days. Sure enough, after barely finishing that lavish meal, Xiao Yunjing once again wanted to end his life. Fortunately, I had already infiltrated the Xiao residence, so when he tried to slit his wrist, I had already replaced the dagger with a candy figurine. Dad, if you're going to die, at least be a sweet ghost. Xiao Yunjing was puzzled. I ignored his dark expression, took the candy dagger, and took a bite. Wow, it's so sweet. Xiao Yunjing was speechless. I chewed and chewed. Dad, how painful must it be to slit your wrist? Why are you so determined to die? He fell silent. I kept chewing and chewing. Wah, can you not die? Otherwise, I'll starve to death too, Xiao Yunjing said in a stiff tone. Don't worry. I'll find you a good family to ensure you never lack food or clothing for the rest of your life. I don't want that. I only want my daddy. Xiao Yunjing snorted lightly. I don't want you either. He spoke with disdain, but his hand gently wiped the sugar crumbs from the corner of my mouth. Dad, your way of saying one thing and meaning another is even sweeter than the sugar figurine. Shut up. I found it amusing and happily finished the sugar figurine. Dad, I still want to eat. Get out. Me, no more giggling. That night, a jar of anti-cavity preserved fruit appeared in my room, with a label that read, poison, dare to try it. Me, hee. As the villainous father's considerate little cotton-padded jacket, I naturally had to return the favor. I dug out all the goodies that butler uncle and the shadow guard uncle had slipped me over the past few days and dashed off to find him. But just as I reached his door, a dull thud suddenly came from inside, like something heavy hitting the floor. Immediately followed by heavy panting, accompanied by an extremely low, gritted-out curse. Useless. My hand on the door suddenly froze, and I instinctively held my breath. Peeking through the crack, Xiao Yunjing had fallen to the ground in an almost bizarre posture, one leg unnaturally curled, while the other was stiffly trapped under the overturned wheelchair. He angrily pushed the wheelchair away, then struck his numb legs again and again, almost as if venting his frustration. Why am I still alive? Why? I gritted my teeth, turned around, and ran. I had to find the butler. Highest alert. The next day, Xiao Yunjing, looking utterly lifeless, ordered his men to prepare explosives. He had already reached a point of self-destruction where he didn't even want to leave his body intact. We had no choice but to secretly replace it with flour, so Xiao Yunjing didn't get the explosion he was waiting for. Instead, he got a shower of flour and a banner with messy handwriting. Celebrating Daddy's extra day of life, he froze in place, his temples throbbing. Xiao Suaning, I answered crisply, yes, I'm here, you little brat, just you wait, come and hit me if you can. I stuck out my tongue at him provocatively, then turned and ran. Finally, he no longer wanted to die. He spun his wheelchair so fast it seemed to spark, chasing me all around the yard. The suicide attempt was put on hold, he had to beat someone up first. Running all the way from the backyard to the front yard, I was panting heavily from the sprint. Looking back, I saw Xiao Yunjing still hot on my heels. Such perseverance. Helplessly, I rubbed my forehead and forced myself to turn around and keep running, only to unexpectedly bump into someone's arms. The person was dressed in snow-white robes, with features as beautiful as a painting. A teardrop mole under the right eye added a touch of enchantment. This appearance clearly indicates an extraordinary status. Lost in my wild thoughts, I was suddenly lifted up like a chick and examined from side to side. Could Xiao Yunjing have such an adorable daughter? Even though my posture is undignified, he just called me adorable. I smiled sweetly, speaking with utmost politeness. Hello, uncle, you're such a good little girl. Let me tell you, your father is not a good person. Why don't you come with me? I'll buy you candy. The villainous father, who had just caught up, happened to hear this and nearly spat out a mouthful of old blood. His face darkened with murderous intent. Shenyanji, are you looking for death? I was dumbfounded. So the person in front of me is the male lead, Shenyanji. With the villain and the male lead colliding, wouldn't it be a huge explosion? Oh no, it's over. Let her go. Shenyanji smiled, and instead, he tightened his arm, holding me firmly in his embrace. I've heard that Lord Xiao has been seeking death lately. That's perfect. I've taken quite a liking to your daughter, so you can rest assured and go. From now on, I'll take good care of this girl for you. Me? Are you even being polite? Xiao Yunjing's face instantly darkened like the bottom of a pot, and he roared angrily, you wish. Let her go. Hey, don't be so angry, you'll scare the child. As Shenyanji spoke, he even freed one hand to pat my head, saying in a shrill voice, little girl, your father is so fierce, but don't be afraid, uncle will protect you. I was puzzled, something feels off. Not sure, let me take another look. I'm telling you for the last time, let her go. His tone was unusually calm, like the prelude to an outburst. I immediately sensed something was wrong and struggled to get down. But Shenyanji held me firmly in place. Uncle, Shenyanji softly interrupted me. Don't be afraid, uncle will take you away. Then, he turned and walked away with me in his arms, completely disregarding Xiao Yunjing. Instead, he added another jab. Lord Xiao, we'll be leaving now, we'll come back next time for your funeral feast. This male lead really knows how to provoke people. Xiao Yunjing was thoroughly enraged. He slammed the armrest of his wheelchair, and several silver needles shot through the air. Dad, calm down, I shouted anxiously. Shenyanji lifted me up with ease. Indeed, anger harms the body, especially since Lord Xiao's health is already failing. As he spoke, he meaningfully glanced at Xiao Yunjing's legs. Seeing Xiao Yunjing so furious that he was about to wheel his chair over, I looked utterly resigned. Uncle, please shut up. All right, I'll listen to my dear, Shenyanji said with a smile. He handed me toward Xiao Yunjing's direction and sighed. Forget it, the child will always lean toward you in the end. Xiao Yunjing's expression softened slightly, and he instinctively reached out to take me. At the critical moment, Shenyanji suddenly pulled back, then said with a look of self-reproach, I forgot that Lord Xiao has trouble with his legs and can't hold. I'm shattered. Looking for death. Xiao Yunjing was furious. He drew a flexible sword from somewhere and thrust it straight at Shenyanji's throat. Shenyanji's expression remained unchanged. After spinning to dodge, he leaped into the air with me and placed me on the rooftop. Sweetie, your dad and I are going to perform a martial arts show for you. Just sit here and watch quietly. As he spoke, he even pulled a bag of sunflower seeds from his pocket and handed it to me. So, I sat on the rooftop, munching on sunflower seeds while watching the two of them perform in the courtyard below. Xiao Yunjing's attacks were fierce and swift, each move carrying a hint of killing intent, But Shun Yanji remained calm and composed, his evasive movements effortless and graceful. Gradually, Xiao Yunjing's breathing grew heavier, and the wheelchair no longer turned as smoothly as before. Seeing this, Shun Yanji curled his lips into a smile, then deliberately slowed his pace, leading Xiao Yunjing in circles around the old locust tree in the courtyard, as if teasing a little dog. How wicked. I couldn't bear to watch any longer and shouted at the top of my lungs, "Dad, Uncle, I need to pee." The two of them suddenly froze, speechless. At this point, the battle was interrupted. Just then, the hidden guard uncle suddenly appeared from somewhere, beating Shun Yanji to it by scooping me up and placing me beside Xiao Yunjing. Xiao Yunjing pulled me into his arms and said fiercely, "If you dare run off again, watch your skin." But he held on tighter than anyone else. Shun Yanji sneered, "Lord Xiao, you can't run yourself, and you won't let the child run either." "Ah, I just want the child to have a father who can run and jump with her. When will you make that happen?" The air suddenly froze. Xiao Yunjing's temple veins bulged once more. "Get out." Seeing that a conflict was about to erupt again, I quickly clung to Xiao Yunjing. "Dad, hurry and take me to the outhouse." Then, I waved at Shun Yanji. "Goodbye, Uncle, you should head back now." "All right, sweetie. When you no longer have a dad, Uncle will come to pick you up." Xiao Yunjing was puzzled. I felt mentally exhausted. Along the way, I carefully observed Xiao Yunjing's expression, afraid that he might become depressed because of the male lead. "Don't look at me with that kind of gaze," Xiao Yunjing said coldly. I gave an awkward smile. "Dad, you're really handsome." "Cut the flattery." He paused, then suddenly asked, "Do you want to go with him?" "Of course not. I have you, Dad." I quickly made my stance clear. He let out an almost imperceptible sigh of relief, his tone stiff as he said, "After I die, you can go with anyone you want, but not him. He still wants to die. How can he be so stubborn?" "I'm angry. If you dare to die, I'll immediately acknowledge him as my father. Then I'll take him to dance in front of your grave every day." Xiao Yunjing's face darkened. "You wouldn't dare." I refused to back down. "Do you think I wouldn't dare? Unless you live well and be a good father to me." "But I'm not well. Whether you're well or not is for me to decide. Other villains are utterly wicked and devoid of conscience." But Xiao Yunjing did not. He was merely set against the male lead, and the author cast him as the villain. How utterly unjust is that? Whether his legs are crippled or not, he is still a good person. After a moment of stalemate, Xiao Yunjing sighed and gave in. "I really don't know what to do with you." I was ecstatic, jumping up and down, shouting and screaming with joy. "Shut up, you're so noisy. Ha ha ha, I'm just happy." "So, Daddy, can you take me out to play now?" "Overthinking it. Tomorrow, you're off to school." I am speechless. In the end, with my head hanging low, I was dragged by Xiao Yunjing to the study. First lesson from a strict father, reading and practicing calligraphy. Pointing at the messy scrawl on my banner, he looked utterly disdainful. "Too ugly. I've never seen such ugly handwriting. Today, I'll teach you to practice first, so you won't embarrass yourself too much tomorrow." "But what's the use of cramming at such a late hour?" I sat at the desk with a bitter expression. "Father, I can't possibly master it in such a short time. Can I?" He shot me a sharp glance. I pinched my lips with 2 fingers. "Okay, I'll shut up now." After that, the entire study was filled with his complaints. "Ugly. Do it again. So ugly. Do it again. Oh my God. Too ugly. Do it again." I couldn't take it anymore. "Then why did you hang up the daddy is the best that I wrote? To ward off evil spirits." I am speechless. I practiced until evening, feeling dizzy and exhausted. Rubbing my wrist, I complained, "Dad, my hand is so sore, can we call it a day?" He kept a stern face. "Your handwriting hasn't improved much, but you've become quite delicate." I pretended to be pitiful. "Daddy, go back and rest." Woo-woo, he finally let me off. Having such a father, my life is so miserable. When I went to bed at night, I fell asleep almost as soon as I touched the bed. In a daze, I felt someone applying something to my hand. It was cool and comfortable, relieving the soreness in my wrist. I looked at him with sleepy eyes. "Daddy, what are you doing?" He stiffened all over and spoke stiffly. "Checking to see if you've been sneaking candy. Then you should at least hide the ointment first." Having a father like this. Life isn't really that bitter. I'm already used to his stubbornness, so I just let out a faint "oh" before turning over and going back to sleep. I had no idea that he secretly took away the cute little book pouch Shinyenji had someone send me when he left. Then, he stayed up all night working by lamplight, making what he thought was an identical ugly thing, trying to swap it out for mine. When I woke up the next day and saw this ugly thing, the corner of my mouth twitched. If I take this to the academy, I'm afraid it will be even more embarrassing than my handwriting. Hurry up, it's time for school, Xiao Yunjing urged me impatiently, completely unaware of how ugly his creation was. In the end, I had no choice but to sling this hideous book bag over my shoulder and reluctantly follow him out the door. Just as we stepped outside, a group of eunuchs hurried over. The imperial decree arrives. I froze in place, the color rapidly draining from my face. Oh no. I only stopped Xiao Yunjing from actively seeking death, but I forgot that he's the villain. Others might not want him to live at all. I listened to the imperial decree with trembling fear. Fortunately, it was a false alarm. The emperor spoke in circles and finally told him to continue serving the court. I was overjoyed. However, Xiao Yunjing didn't look too pleased. After seeing off the eunuch who delivered the imperial decree, the butler also revealed a bitter expression, feeling puzzled. I pulled the butler aside and whispered, "What's going on?" The master has a strong sense of pride. After the incident, he insisted on doing everything himself. Many facilities in the mansion have been renovated so that he can move around freely. However, the palace is full of thresholds and steps everywhere. Every time he passes through a place, he will need someone to carry him up and down. How can he face that? The master has just started to show a bit of vitality. If he goes out like this and sees the ridicule of others, will he? I was stunned. But what can be done even if it's difficult? Can one defy an imperial decree? I took a deep breath and had no choice but to force myself into action. I stepped forward and took his hand. "Father, go to court, I'll go to school by myself, don't worry. I'll be brave." He looked at me with a dazed expression for a moment, saying nothing at all. I made my own request. "But when school is over, you have to come pick me up. It would be even better if you could bring a stick of candied hawthorn." He suddenly smiled and said, "Okay, you're the best, Dad." I silently breathed a sigh of relief. Based on past experience, he always kept his promises to me, so I felt reassured. After arriving at the school, I was indeed met with ridicule. It wasn't because of the ugly book bag, but because my father was disabled. They were like a flock of noisy sparrows, chirping and circling around me, but I showed no reaction, so they naturally found it boring and dispersed in disappointment. Yet my heart couldn't help but sink. What about my father's side? If even a bunch of little brats are like this, what about those in the court? The thought of all the troubles he was about to face made my chest feel heavy. It dawned on me that, beyond all the playful banter, I had truly come to see him as family, the closest person to me in this world. Finally, the school day dragged to an end, each moment feeling like an eternity. But once again, the male lead showed up. Seeing me run out, Shinyenji spread his arms wide from a distance, his smile bright and cheerful. "Come here, sweetheart, uncle will give you a lift." Xiao Yunjing's face was dark and gloomy on the side. "Lord Xiao, why are you making such a sour face? Other children have their fathers lifting them high and spinning them around. If you can't do it yourself, that's fine. But why won't you let me help? What kind of logic is that?" Xiao Yunjing raised his hand to the hidden weapon switch on the wheelchair, smiling insincerely as he said, "I can make your head spin around. Want to try?" Shinyenji was speechless. I am speechless. I was overthinking it. Who could ever get the better of my father's sharp tongue? The pent-up frustration of the entire day instantly vanished. I dashed over and leaped right onto his lap. "Daddy, spin me around." Xiao Yunjing's face darkened. "Get down." Yet his hand reflexively grabbed me. Afraid I might fall, I whispered very softly, "Dad, Uncle Shin is really looking forward to it. Hold on tight." Then he clumsily spun the wheelchair around in a circle. Shinyenji looked at me with a hurt expression. "Sweetie, Uncle can lift you high." Xiao Yunjing snorted coldly. "Since Lord Shin likes children so much, why not have one of your own? That would be better than constantly coveting someone else's." After a pause, he suddenly raised his voice. "Ah, could it be that Lord Shin is incapable in that area?" After saying this, Xiao Yunjing wore an expression of sudden realization. No wonder, no wonder. At this moment, the people around turned to look, their faces showing the expression of someone who has just caught a juicy piece of gossip. Shun Yanji was puzzled, his usually gentle and refined expression finally cracked. What nonsense are you talking about? Xiao Yunjing smiled faintly without saying a word, looking as if he understood everything. It's fine, Lord Shun, if you're sick, go see a doctor, don't avoid treatment out of fear of the illness. Shun Yangji narrowed his eyes and suddenly laughed. Avoid treatment out of fear of the illness. Is Lord Xiao talking about himself? Xiao Yunjing was speechless. After returning to the mansion, Xiao Yunjing, having been repeatedly provoked by Shun Yanji, began to consider treating his legs. Back when he was first injured, he had sought out all the renowned physicians in the capital, but they all asserted that he would never stand again in this lifetime. Thus, in despair, he had wanted to end his life, to put an end to it all. Now, seeing him willing to seek medical treatment again, though the outcome remains uncertain, there is at least a glimmer of hope. The butler was overjoyed and immediately sent people to post notices, offering a generous reward to seek out renowned doctors from all over the world. The next day, it happened that a Miaojiang miracle doctor arrived in the capital. It was said that this person was unparalleled in both medicine and poison, and well versed in all kinds of strange arts. However, he had an eccentric personality and practiced medicine entirely based on his whims, if he was unwilling. Even putting a knife to his neck wouldn't work. The butler was both delighted and worried. Just as he was fretting over what treasure he could use to invite the doctor, he never expected the miracle doctor to come knocking on his door on his own initiative. This person was about 60 years old, with an unremarkable appearance and even more peculiar attire. Around his waist hung about 10 large and small Gu jars, jingling and clattering as he moved. And one could even hear the faint rustling of Gu worms wriggling inside. He stared intently at Xiao Yunjing for a long moment before suddenly breaking into a hearty laugh. You're quite lucky, there's no poison in this world that I can't cure. I was taken aback, it was actually poison. If he hadn't been poisoned for long and his legs hadn't atrophied yet, did that mean he could slowly recover as long as the poison was cured? This was truly an unexpected delight. But Xiao Yunjing did not show the expected delight. Instead, he looked wary. Who sent you? What is your purpose? The divine physician said with a half-smile. If you cannot trust me, then I shall leave. I stared at him, lost in thought. In the novel, there was indeed such a character. The author had set him as the world's greatest physician, so curing my father's leg would surely be a piece of cake for him. It's just that in the novel, he was there to serve the male lead. But now, is it Shun Yanji who's helping? Also, who was it that sent me here in the first place? Even Xiao Yunjing, the person involved, didn't know of my existence, so only the male lead could have such capability. Looking at Shun Yanji's recent actions again, excellent, they're on our side. My father's leg really has hope. I had a rough idea in my mind, I was overjoyed, but still wanted a definite answer to put my mind at ease. Grandpa Miracle Doctor, after the poison is cured, will my father be able to walk normally again? The miracle doctor glanced at me and said calmly, yes, but it's not something an ordinary person can endure. Treat it now. I made the final decision, covering Xiao Yunjing's mouth before he could say anything, and spoke first. My father can definitely do it. Xiao Yunjing seemed momentarily dazed, then mumbled, let go. I chuckled. Dad, give it a try. I believe in this divine Dr. Grandpa. He didn't say anything more, silently nodding in agreement. Next, the divine physician made a small incision on each of Xiao Yunjing's legs with a small knife, then opened a dark green jar of Gu worms. Dense swarms of Gu worms scrambled to crawl out. I felt a chill run down my spine, and Xiao Yunjing gasped sharply. In the next moment, the Gu worms burrowed into his wounds one after another. Xiao Yunjing instantly turned deathly pale from the pain, with cold sweat streaming down his forehead. He gripped the wheelchair armrests so tightly that his knuckles turned white, yet he endured the pain without uttering a sound. Indeed, he was no ordinary person. I anxiously paced around him, offering my arm to his mouth. Father, bite me if you need to. The veins on his temples bulged as he struggled to force out a single word, get out. The next second, he suddenly fainted. Father, during the initial phase of treatment, Xiao Yunjing would faint and wake up, then wake up and faint again almost every day, leaving him looking quite haggard. It made me start to wonder if this miracle doctor was actually here to take his life. Fortunately, It wasn't long before his legs gradually began to regain sensation. After enduring this difficult period for a while, the divine physician said that the toxins in his body had been mostly cleared, and he could start trying to exercise the strength in his legs. This process was still extremely grueling. Xiao Yunjing slowly stood up with the help of crutches, his over 6-foot-tall frame making him appear particularly upright. If not for his trembling arms and the cold sweat beading on his forehead, the scene would have been perfect. I watched his legs nervously, not daring to breathe. "Father, take it slow, try lifting your right leg first." But as soon as he tried to raise his right leg, his body shuddered violently. The crutch slipped forward with a harsh, grating sound. "Father," I exclaimed in shock, instinctively wanting to rush forward to support him. But he stopped me with a single glance. "It's fine, don't make a fuss." He steadied himself, took a deep breath, and once again lifted his right leg, slowly moving it half a step forward. I jumped for joy. "Ah, it worked, it worked." "Hey, Dad, don't shake your left leg." "Xiao Yunjing, shut up." His steps were slow, each one as if treading on the edge of a knife. His legs trembled uncontrollably, looking as though he might collapse at any moment, which made my heart race with anxiety. Before long, his breathing grew heavier and heavier. The front and back of his shirt were already soaked with sweat, making him look as if he had just been pulled out of the water. I couldn't help but push his wheelchair over to stop him. "All right, Father, that's enough for today, let's take it slow." The days of treatment were painful and long. One day, Shenyanji suddenly paid a visit, dressed in white. He leaned against the corridor and smiled lightly. "How has Lord Xiao been lately?" Xiao Yunjing kept a stern face, never one to show him any kindness. "Very well, take your time and don't bother seeing me out." "Do you think I want to see that sour face of yours?" Shenyanji said with annoyance. "It's just that I feel sorry for the child. Besides going to school, all she does is stay by your side, not even having time to eat a sugar figurine." As he spoke, he pulled out a rabbit-shaped sugar figurine from behind his back and handed it to me. "Good girl, Uncle brought this especially for you." I smiled and reached out to take it, but Xiao Yunjing raised his hand and knocked it away. "You dare eat anything? Aren't you afraid it might be poisoned?" Shenyanji sneered. "Lord Xiao, with all your caution, how did you still end up crippled?" Xiao Yunqi fumed. "You, angry again?" Shenyanji's smile deepened. "If you put half the effort you spend on getting angry into exercising, you wouldn't still be able to take only a few steps after all this time." My father was no less sharp, sneering in return. "If you put half the effort you spend meddling in my business into taking your medicine, you wouldn't still be childless after all this time." Having had the first experience, Shenyanji wasn't the least bit annoyed this time. Instead, he looked at me with a loving smile and said, "Isn't there a ready-made one right here? I prefer my dear little treasure." "Dear little treasure, there's a lantern festival in the west of the city tonight. It's really lively. How about going out to play with your uncle?" I glanced at Xiao Yunjing's expression and shrank my neck, not daring to speak. "Why do you two always have to drag me into your arguments when you quarrel? Woo-woo, please let me go." Shenyanji followed my gaze to Xiao Yunjing and laughed. "What, can you take her out to play? The kind that ends after just 3 steps? Xiao Yunjing was furious. "I can walk as long as it takes." As if to prove it, he held his breath and took 1 step, 2 steps, stubbornly walking over 20 steps. I was afraid he would continue to push himself and end up making things worse, so I had no choice but to ask Shenyanji to leave. "Thank you for your kindness, Uncle. I'll wait until my father's leg is better in a few days before going out to play. I wouldn't want to trouble you." Xiao Yunjing's expression instantly relaxed, a hint of smugness in his demeanor. "Minister Shen, after all, it's your own child who truly feels close to you." Shenyanji raised an eyebrow. "I hope you don't make the child wait too long." Before leaving, he still wouldn't give up. "Sweetie, if you want to play, you can always come find Uncle." Bye-bye, Uncle Tilda." Watching Shenyanji's figure gradually fade into the distance, I quickly wheeled my chair over to Xiao Yunjing's side and whispered, "Dad, he's gone. You should sit down and rest for a bit." After all, before this, he could only walk about a dozen steps at most. Today's intensity was definitely over the limit. Xiao Yunjing's face darkened again and again. He angrily retorted, "Who do you look down on?" But before he could finish speaking, he suddenly bent over and violently coughed up a large mouthful of black blood. Father, he swayed and collapsed to the ground with a heavy thud. Father, Shenyanji, who hadn't gone far, heard the commotion and rushed over immediately. What's going on? I was already so anxious that tears streamed down my face. I don't know. Woo-woo, father, please don't scare me. Shenyanji, someone, quickly call the divine physician. At this moment, Xiao Yunjing lay collapsed on the ground. Blood continuously seeping from the corner of his lips. No matter how hard I tried to stop it. Anning, don't cry. He struggled to pull on Shenyanji's sleeve, actually wanting to entrust me to him. If you dare treat her poorly, I'll come back as a ghost, to settle the score with you. I held his cold hand, crying uncontrollably. Dad, what are you saying? You'll be fine. We just agreed that you would spend more time playing with me later, and you've never carried me on your back before. You can't. Dad, wake up. Dad, he couldn't open his eyes, forcing a bitter smile. Maybe. There won't be another chance. Xiao Yunjing lay motionless on the bed, his face so pale it was almost transparent, looking as fragile as if he might slip away at any moment. I held my breath as I watched him, my heart trembling. A moment later, the divine physician finished taking the pulse, a slight smile curling at the corner of his mouth. The toxins in his body have been completely cleared. This is good news. In an instant, it felt like moving from hell to heaven. I asked in disbelief, really, but why is he still unconscious? The divine physician shot me a glance. Exhaustion. After speaking, he walked up to Shenyanji, stroking his beard with a light smile. Lord Shen, the favor I owe you is now settled. From now on, I will wander the world, and if fate allows, we shall meet again. I looked at Shenyanji, and my earlier speculation was confirmed. It was indeed him. Thank you, uncle, I said solemnly. Shenyanji smiled and patted my head. Good girl. This is our little secret. Don't tell your father, or he'll get all worked up again. All right, I nodded helplessly. Outside the window, the moonlight was as pale as frost. None of us noticed that Xiao Yunjing's fingertips had moved ever so slightly. I stayed by Xiao Yunjing's side until the early hours of the morning, but I was so exhausted that I could barely keep my eyes open. Drowsily, I decided to go back and get some sleep before checking on him again. I never expected that as soon as I reached the backyard, I was knocked unconscious from behind with a stick. When I woke up again, I had no idea how much time had passed. Before me was an abandoned temple. Covered in spiderwebs and in a state of disrepair, I was tied to a pillar with a cloth stuffed in my mouth. The man who tied me up had a face covered in knife scars and a pair of standard small, beady eyes. Seeing me wake up, he grinned menacingly. Little girl, awake. Fut. I struggled to spit out the cloth gag. Who are you? Why did you tie me up? What do you want? Not even scared enough to cry. Quite brave for such a young age. What a shame. He toyed with a dagger, taking slow steps toward me. Hey, let's talk this out. My father loves me dearly. If you want money, name your price. But if you dare, ha ha ha. He suddenly interrupted me with a loud laugh. It's precisely because Xiao Yunjing cares for you the most that I kidnapped you. Blame your own bad luck. Since my poison can't take him down, I have to try a different approach. For example, how about making him watch you die right in front of him, and then joining you in death? I miscalculated. I quickly tried to salvage the situation. No, you've got it all wrong. Actually, I'm Shenyanji's. At that moment, with a sudden boom, the door was kicked open from the outside, sending dust flying everywhere. Backlit by the light, two familiar figures stood side by side, one seated and one standing. Xiao Yunjing, dressed in black, had a face as dark as ink, and the long sword in his hand gleamed coldly. Shenyanji, clad in white, had sharp eyes and held a long spear tilted toward the ground. After seeing the kidnapper's face clearly, he was stunned for a moment. Lin Heng was the personal bodyguard of the former crown prince. At the end of the novel's story, the author only wrote that after the male lead helped the fifth prince ascend the throne, the former crown prince committed suicide in the Eastern Palace. As for minor characters like Lin Heng, the author wouldn't even bother to write about them. Who would have thought that now, he has quietly become the ultimate villain? Lin Heng sneered coldly. Xiao Yunjing, when you betrayed His Highness, you never expected you'd end up like this, did you? Shenyanji's lips twitched slightly. Throughout history, the victor becomes king, and the loser becomes a bandit. Since he has already fallen, it means fate was not on his side. Lord Xiao's loyalty to the new emperor is simply a minister's duty. How can that be called betrayal? Nonsense. If he hadn't turned traitor at the last moment, how could his highness have lost to a mere brat? Xiao Yunjing said coldly. The crown prince used to appear benevolent and humble, but it was all a disguise. In truth, he is cruel and tyrannical, far from being a wise ruler. Lin Heng was furious. Nonsense. What right do you have to judge his highness? If it weren't for him, you would still be a lowly illegitimate son. How could you have achieved what you have today? You truly deserve to die. Xiao Yunjing retorted, if you have any grievances, direct them at me. Attacking a 6-year-old child, what kind of man does that make you? Shenyanji said, Lin Heng, release the child now, and I will grant you a dignified death. Lin Heng laughed, such big talk, let's see if you have the ability to back it up. Men, kill them. Shenyanji, Lord Xiao, since your legs aren't in the best condition, why not let me go first? Xiao Yunjing, get lost. Then the two of them charged in at the same time. Xiao Yunjing deftly maneuvered his wheelchair, swiftly silencing the charging assailant with a single sword stroke, blood spraying 3 feet into the air. Shenyanji's spear shot out like a dragon, effortlessly tossing 3 men aside, all while offering a critique. Lord Xiao, your movements should be more graceful. That blood spatter is rather unsightly. Xiao Yunjing shoved the corpse toward him with a backhanded motion. You're the graceful one, you're the elegant one. Why don't you go perform in a circus? I am speechless. At such a critical moment, how can you two still be arguing? The key is that I'm still in Lin Heng's hands, and I could be killed at any moment. I shrank my neck, trying to make myself as inconspicuous as possible, silently praying that Lin Heng would forget about me. However, as more and more of his underlings fell, Lin Heng realized the situation was hopeless. A fierce glint flashed in his eyes. I had intended to spare your life, but now you can only die with me. With that, he raised his dagger and aimed it straight at my back. I was so scared that my whole body went rigid, my mind completely blank. This is it. With a loud clang, the expected pain did not come. I snapped back to reality just in time to see Xiao Yunjing's sword and Shenyanji's spear simultaneously blocking Lin Heng's dagger. Blades clashed, sparks flying everywhere. The two exchanged a glance, then, Shenyanji rushed forward in a flash, pressing my head into his chest with one hand while covering my ears with the other. Good girl, count to 10, he deliberately softened his voice. Once you finish counting, we'll go home. After 10 counts. Everything around fell silent, and all was settled. Shenyanji picked me up and held me in his arms again. Sweetie, we were just putting on a play. Don't be scared. I am speechless, trying to fool a 3-year-old. Oh, I'm 6 years old. Xiao Yunjing wheeled over in his chair and said discontentedly, put her down. The little one is scared. What's wrong with me holding her for a while? I want to hold her. As he spoke, he stood up and tried to reach out to snatch me. Shenyanji took 2 steps back, sidestepping to avoid him. Lord Xiao, your leg shouldn't be pushed too hard. Don't drop our precious girl. Are you questioning me? Seeing that the two were about to start arguing again, I had to step in to mediate. I quickly jumped out of Shenyanji's arms and stretched out my hands toward them. Dad, uncle, I want you both to hold my hands and walk with me. I held Xiao Yunjing with my left hand and Shenyanji with my right, skipping forward as I went. We're going home. The setting sun cast our 3 long, twisted shadows, overlapping like an unsolvable knot. Even our voices seemed to tangle endlessly. Shenyanji, sweetie, slow down a bit. Your dad just learned how to walk, don't let him fall. Xiao Yunjing, sweetheart, don't hold his hand. How about I take you for a spin in my wheelchair instead? Shenyanji, haha, what's the big deal? I can even use my qinggong to fly with you. Want to give it a try? It's super fun. Xiao Yunjing was speechless. Someone's going to secretly increase their rehabilitation again when they get back. Xiao Anning, the master of Balanceus Online, and I'm not agreeing to anyone. Let's just walk hand in hand like this, and please be quiet, alright? But it wasn't long before they started up again. Shenyanji, sweetie, are you really not considering me as your dad? Xiao Yunjing, Lord Shen, can't you just have one of your own? Shenyanji, didn't you already say I can't have one? So when are you going to die? Hurry up and make room, I want to be Sweetie's dad. Xiao Yunjing, dream on, I'm not dying, I'm going to stick around and see if a rooster like you can lay an egg. Shenyanji was speechless. Fine, 1 win each, extra, Shenyanji. I've always had smooth sailing in everything I do since I was young. When I wanted to study, rare ancient books would coincidentally be delivered. When I wished to practice martial arts, a reclusive master would show up at my door the very next day. Even the beggar I casually helped turned out to be a hidden master of medicine. It felt as though the entire world revolved around me. Yet, I found it utterly boring, until I suddenly gained a sworn enemy, Xiao Yunjing. Just because I entered the school with my left foot first, he took a dislike to me and started picking on me everywhere, opposing me at every turn. It's a bit baffling, but also a bit interesting. So I sent Xiao Suaning to Xiao Yunjing. I don't want him to die. If he dies, I'll lose a lot of fun. Xiao Yunjing, I've disliked Shenyanji since I was a child. In the academy, I competed with him in studies and lost every time. After entering officialdom, he still outshone me at every turn. I was almost driven to distraction, until news of the emperor's critical illness spread. Factional strife is gradually emerging, with undercurrents surging. Shenyanji has set his sights on the most inconspicuous fifth prince, and I am aligned with the crown prince's faction. I think this time I should finally win, but later, I discovered that the crown prince's benevolence and humility were all a facade. In reality, he was cruel and tyrannical, ruling with brutality and injustice. He was not a wise ruler. At the critical moment, I defected. I anonymously sent some evidence to the fifth prince. In the end, the fifth prince ascended the throne. And Shenyanji became the Marquis of Yongning, standing above all but one. Meanwhile, I suddenly became disabled in both legs, reduced to a useless person. At this moment, the invisible force within me seemed to vanish. Indeed, it was this very force that had been pushing me to oppose Shenyanji all along. And now we are worlds apart. What right do I have to oppose him? It feels as though I've lost all meaning in life in an instant. Just die, might as well be dead. Until a 6-year-old little girl suddenly showed up at my door, claiming I was her father. I no longer wanted to die. I wanted to stand up and hold her in my arms. But Shenyanji was always lingering like a ghost, trying to take her away from me. I'm so annoyed. He's really annoying. The new emperor. In the palace, I was the most inconspicuous prince. I never expected Shenyanji to support me, putting me in a position I never dared to dream of. I admire him, but I also fear him. I worry that his next move will be to kick me out and take my place himself. Every day, I tread carefully, as if walking on thin ice, until I heard that his arch-rival, Xiao Yunjing, recently seemed to have lost the will to die. In that case, I wanted to give him a helping hand. But I also feared that his gratitude toward the former crown prince had not yet faded, worried that I might invite another hidden danger. So I sent people to investigate discreetly and found that Xiao Yunjing was spending every day doting on her daughter, even staying up late to sew a book bag for her. I fell silent, having a daughter to burden him. This man is not a cause for concern. Excellent, as I expected. After Xiao Yunjing entered the court, he and Shenyanji argued incessantly all day long. I watched from above with great amusement. Let them keep each other in check. Brilliant, brilliant, Xiao Suaning. What to do when the villain and the male lead argue all day long? They argue at the drop of a hat. They argue in court, and it's not enough. They have to come home and argue too, because of the kidnapping incident last time. They want to teach me martial arts, just in case. Xiao Yunjing wants me to learn swordsmanship, but Shenyanji wants me to practice spear fighting. The two of them have been arguing about this all day. Finally, I skillfully balanced the situation by saying, let's learn both. At most, I'll just have to work a little harder. Then, they started arguing again over the issue of time allocation. I am mentally exhausted. Oh, right, recently, there's been another very troubling matter. They even started arguing over my allowance. They practically fought to give me spending money, each trying to outdo the other. As a result, I ended up with so much money I had nowhere to spend it. So I set my sights on the grandson of General Choo next door, the toughest guy in our school. Tall and handsome, he was strictly controlled by his family and given no pocket money, but secretly, he was a foodie. Seeing him drooling by the roast duck stall once again, I generously bought him 2 whole ducks. Look, I was just worrying about having too much money with nowhere to spend it, so, with the magic of money, I successfully lured him into becoming my little sidekick. After that, Wherever I pointed, he went, and we became the ones who could strut around the school. That day, I took him to the market to reward him for helping me deal with another troublemaker. I never expected to run into Xiao Yunjing and Shen Yanji right on the street. Feeling guilty, I quickly put some distance between him and me, but this guy had no sense of the situation at all. His mind was completely focused on the pastry shop nearby, and he tugged at my sleeve, whining for me to buy him more. Sister, I want to eat Osmanthus cake too. Not far away, Xiao Yunjing and Shen Yanji both turned green with anger at the same time. This time, the two of them were united for the first time. Brat, take your hand away. After hearing the first story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. The palace servants all said the crown prince was sick, that he liked mannequins, and I, as luck would have it, had transmigrated into his mannequin. I acted so convincingly that no one suspected a thing, only he knew I was alive. But the way he looked at me grew increasingly strange, feeding me, coaxing me to sleep, holding me tight and refusing to let go. That night, I blinked, and a palace maid caught sight of it. He smiled as he stroked my head, but his eyes were chillingly cold. She must have been mistaken. The next day, the palace had one less person and one more bone china lamp. The crown prince's palace was quiet, so quiet that you could hear a pin drop. I sat on the cushion beside the couch, maintaining the same posture. My hands were folded on my knees, the hem of my skirt remained still, and my smile was just right, no different from a porcelain figure fired by a palace artisan. There are rumors outside that the crown prince has gone mad, burning a porcelain doll that looks exactly like the former crown princess, and talking to her, feeding her, and combing her hair every day. But I am not a porcelain doll. I was transmigrated into this. While others transmigrate as princesses or noble ladies, I, on the other hand, opened my eyes to find myself as a porcelain doll placed by the bedside of Zhao Qiyuan, the crown prince of Daqian, still just a porcelain doll with only its eyes and mouth able to move. From the very start, I was in a golden sandalwood box, personally lifted out by Zhao Qiyuan. The first time I looked up, I met his eyes, calm to the point of madness. "You're finally awake," he said. "Don't be afraid, as long as you sit still, I won't touch you." I believed his first sentence, but not the second, because from that day on, he touched me every day. He was so meticulous that he would even use a handkerchief to slowly wipe the dust from my little fingernail, feeding me, washing my face, changing my clothes even if I didn't move a muscle. He could act it all out by himself for a whole day, like a madman lost in a dream. But he's not crazy, he's very shrewd. Last night, I really couldn't hold back any longer. My eyes were so dry they were almost stuck together, and I blinked. Right at that moment, a palace maid happened to see it. She looked at me as if she had seen a ghost. "I know, I'm finished." But the next second, Zhao Qiyuan leisurely walked in, stood by my side, lowered his head to stroke my hair, his tone as gentle as a spring breeze. "You saw wrong." The palace maid's face turned deathly pale, kowtowing until her forehead bled. Zhao Qiyuan said nothing more, only ordered, "Someone, take her back to rest." The next day, a bone china lamp appeared in the palace, carved with the face of that palace maid, smiling so vividly it seemed alive. Zhao Qiyuan definitely has a cleanliness obsession. Several times, I was in the middle of a sweet dream, and he insisted on wiping my entire body with warm water, undoubtedly cleansing but disturbing my peaceful sleep. Heavens, could you spare a moment to do me a favor? When will this life of being controlled by others ever come to an end? I don't ask for much, just let me become human again. Please, please. A month later, Zhao Qiyuan unexpectedly proposed to take me out of the palace for a walk. I opened my eyes to look at him, almost losing my composure. "Although I can't walk, I'm truly tired of staying in this broken palace. It would be nice to go out and see the scenery." Zhao Qiyuan lifted me with both hands, his movements extremely gentle, as if cradling a cherished treasure he feared might break. The imperial carriage sped directly to the hot spring palace in the rear mountains. Clad in dark robes, he held a pristine, flawless porcelain doll in his hands, while the imperial guards and palace attendants remained silent throughout the journey. Upon reaching the palace, he carefully placed me on the couch, then arranged incense burners, flowers, and fruits as if making an offering to a deity. "I'm in a good mood today, so I'll let you enjoy the breeze, it'll get better, having you by my side is enough. I couldn't make a sound, so I just blinked my eyes and put on a professional smile. Zhao Qiyuan muttered to himself for over half an hour. His words were vague and confusing. I couldn't understand and soon grew drowsy. At night, he held me while sleeping. And I dared not move at all, fearing he might suddenly get angry and throw me. Now this porcelain body is essentially my true form. If he shatters it, I truly won't be able to return. I pretended earnestly, pretended with great effort, pretended to the point of forgetting myself, but he suddenly spoke up. Are you tired? I shuddered all over. He leaned close to my ear, his tone light as a feather. Move a little. So I know you're still here, but you're pretending to be so well behaved. I can't bear to expose you. Keep pretending a little longer. Okay. He held me tighter. Don't run away again, not even in your dreams. So, don't move. I was stretched to the limit, with only one thought left in my mind: escape. But before I could figure out how to escape, he suddenly pressed his forehead against mine, mumbling incessantly. Wait, what is calling? Seems to be my name. It's been over a month since I arrived in this world, and I haven't spoken a single word. Let alone told anyone my name. Ming-chun, Ming-chun. This time I heard it clearly. It was indeed my name. A coincidence? Does Zhao Qiyuan know me? Is he also a time traveler? Unable to figure it out, I decided to simply stop thinking about it. Just as I was clearing my mind and preparing to sleep, he gently tucked me into the blanket as if soothing a baby, softly patting my back, his voice tender to the utmost. Tell me, if one day you truly shatter, how should I piece you back together? Should I use kintsugi, or, he smiled and murmured, as if speaking in a dream, fine, I'll just burn myself too, to keep you company. Wait, no one told me this crown prince was a Yanda lunatic. If this keeps up, my heart definitely won't be able to take it. But then again, porcelain dolls probably don't have hearts. Right, I racked my brains all night, but I couldn't figure out what went wrong. A kind-hearted, sunny, and cheerful girl like me should have been reincarnated as the heroine of a romance novel, equipped with a system and top-tier gear. I know, it must be because my lively and energetic personality is too endearing, and the gods wanted me to experience a completely different life. 3 seconds later, I dismissed all the comforting thoughts I had just come up with. Being a porcelain doll is truly stifling, and being Zhao Qiyuan's porcelain doll is utterly unbearable. Help, help. In the eyes of outsiders, the crown prince is stern and decisive, but in private, he actually seduces a porcelain doll, with eyes like autumn waters and a tall, graceful figure. How could I resist stealing a glance? Besides, he was the one who took off his own clothes. Zhao Qiyuan, bare-chested, held me as he sat down in the hot spring, his palm pressed against my back. Slowly pushing me down, fragile porcelain like me will crack in hot water. I almost couldn't hold back from shouting, but unfortunately, I still couldn't speak, so I could only scream wildly in my heart. But Zhao Qiyuan looked serious, looking down at me, his eyes even carrying a hint of pity. You're still too cold, you need to warm up a bit. My heart was breaking. Bro, are you not just warming up a dish? I tried to maintain my lifeless expression, but the hot spring water was truly scalding. The heat seeping through the porcelain shell into the crevices of my bones, as if my blood was about to revive. No, where did this blood come from? Yet the reality is, I actually started to feel it. First, a slight itch at the fingertips, as if ants were crawling beneath the skin, followed by a tingling sensation that slowly spread from the soles of the feet up to the knees, waist, and back. An indescribable flutter rippled from deep within the chest. After soaking for a full month, I actually felt a heartbeat. Thump thump, thump thump. Zhao Qiyuan remained calm, his slender fingers slowly gliding through my hair, his voice deep, as if coaxing a waking little beast. Don't be afraid, you're starting to react, aren't you? I almost jumped up. He knows, he's always known. This is the blood spirit hot spring. Soaking in it more often will help you recover. Do you remember how much you loved soaking in this when you were little, every time you finished? You were especially happy, me, from childhood. So the original body was really a porcelain doll, and a living porcelain doll that could run and jump. Zhao Qiyuan lowered his head, pressing his forehead against mine. I know you don't remember, Ming-chun, but it's okay, I remember. My mind went blank, and I didn't even have the energy to complain. I could only mechanically fix my gaze into the void, desperately maintaining the porcelain doll persona, but the harder I tried to remain still, the more my body heated up, even my brow bone seemed to twitch, and I felt my nostrils flare slightly. I was actually breathing. Then, I heard my own voice. A porcelain doll can also get a fever. I froze, and Zhao Qiyuan froze too. Eyes met, the air froze. The next second, Zhao Qiyuan laughed, his eyes sparkling like a whole pond of spring water in full bloom. "You finally know how to speak," he said, his voice trembling slightly, as if he had used up all his restraint. "It's been too long, madam." Madam, I opened my mouth instinctively, my voice as dry as the scraping of broken porcelain. "You, who exactly are you?" He didn't answer in a hurry, just slowly held me tighter, murmuring softly, "Have you forgotten, my lady? Back then, you were a female general, slaughtering rebels until they dared not leave their camp. I was just a sickly young prince seeking shelter at the edge of the battlefield. You gave me medicine, helped me escape, carried me back to camp. You never remembered me, but I never forgot. Later, you left, never to return. It took me 2 whole years to forge this body through secret arts. My whole system crashed. A female general, secret arts. The more I listen, the more confused I get." Zhao Qiyuan lowered his gaze, his fingertip gently touching my lips. "It's okay if you don't remember. Perhaps this time, with a new shell, your soul hasn't fully recovered yet. I'll slowly call you back." He lifted me out of the water, carefully placed me on a soft cushion, and took out a clean set of clothes for me to change into. But this time, I moved my arm on my own, and I didn't fall. It was the first time I saw Zhao Qiyuan so overjoyed, his eyes crinkling with delight. It was like a branch weighed down by winter snow for an entire season finally catching its first glimpse of spring sunlight. "See, you're no longer a lifeless thing." My eyes widened in shock, my heart pounding wildly, but before I could speak, Zhao Qiyuan suddenly cupped my face and leaned down to kiss me. His warm lips touched my forehead. "It's good that you're back. It's good that you're back." My hands could move again, my feet could kick, and even my throat was no longer dry. "I am truly coming back to life, slowly but surely." And he, with a gaze so intense it seemed to see right through me, as if taking my entire being and holding it close. "Madam," he said, "please don't leave me again." And I, looking into his eyes that burned with an almost fiery intensity, couldn't help but nod in agreement. My body grew more agile day by day, and Zhao Qiyuan also shed his usual gloominess. When in a good mood, he would take me boating on the lake to admire the flowers, savor tea while listening to the rain. Even trivial matters like paying respects or attending court sessions, he insisted on bringing me along. When in a bad mood, it seemed there hadn't been any lately, but today, he scolded someone harshly. At the emperor's birthday banquet, I couldn't bear the hunger any longer and secretly slipped out from his sleeve. Before I could even touch the delicacies in front of me, I was spotted by Prince Qi, Zhao Zhong. As he drew closer and closer, I shook Zhao Qiyuan's sleeve and quickly pretended to be dead. "Your Majesty, this porcelain figurine is truly exquisitely crafted. Your humble brother is utterly delighted by it. I wonder if your Majesty would be willing to part with it and gift it." The moment the word "send" left his lips, Zhao Qiyuan's expression instantly changed. Right in front of the emperor and the court officials, he gave Zhao Zhong a thorough scolding. Of course, in the end, he also earned himself a 10,000-character scripture and a month of self-reflection behind closed doors. On the way back to the mansion, he went on another tirade. In summary, there was only one point. Prince Qi is not a good person, and I am not allowed to get close to him again, not even in thought. Zhao Qiyuan's behavior was so unusual. How could I not be curious? But he wouldn't tell me anything, and I couldn't just grab someone to ask. A faint unease crept into my heart, and I couldn't shake the feeling that Zhao Zhong's approach was not unintentional. That night, after returning to the palace, Zhao Qiyuan, for the first time, didn't speak to me. I had never seen him like this before. Even when he was pretending to be foolish, there was always a hint of coldness and calculation. I heard him talking in his sleep, his voice so low it was almost inaudible. "She likes me, you can't take her away. This time, I won't let go." After that, I had nightmares every night. In the dream, there were flashes of swords and spears, smoke of war filled the sky, and a female general clad in red tasseled armor, riding her horse and brandishing her whip, speared the enemy commander's head with a single thrust. Her gaze was sharp, her horse trampling through thousands of troops, and that body was my own, not a porcelain doll, but a real person. I woke from the dream in a start, my clothes soaked through with cold sweat. This time, I truly remember, that wasn't a dream, it was what Zhao Qiyuan said, my previous memories. It seems I'm not crossing over for the first time. The first time, I was a female general, guarding the nation's borders for the emperor, commanding 1,000,000 troops. Zhao Qiyuan fell into the trap set by a treacherous person, was treated as a disposable pawn, and was escorted to the enemy camp as a hostage. I risked my life to raid the camp and rescued him. At that time, he was still as thin as a spring onion, huddled behind me on the horse, gritting his teeth without uttering a word, and I thought he was the sickly crown prince that others spoke of, unremarkable and not much of a threat, but I never expected that he would spend 2 years turning me into porcelain, sealing me inside the shell he had crafted. He treated me so well, all just to trap me, to avoid seeing Zhao Qiyuan and to remember more. I kept my eyes closed for several days in a row. In a half-dreaming, half-awake state, I recalled another eerie fragment. It was on the night of my wedding when I suddenly lost control of my body. A voice spoke in my ear, a woman's voice. What luck, to have crossed into the shell of the crown princess. But don't worry, it's Prince Qi I'm interested in, I don't want your man. With that, she took control of my body, still wearing my wedding dress, and fled the wedding with a smile. I am trapped in this body, watching the light in Zhao Qiyuan's eyes slowly fade, only to be rekindled with a mad fire. I never imagined that a second transmigrator had once been hidden within this body. You're finally awake, that voice suddenly sounded in my ear, low and pleasant. I suddenly looked up. Zhao Qiyuan was sitting by the bed, holding his breath, filled with anxiety and unease. Does it still hurt? No, it doesn't. My voice was terribly hoarse, and when I uttered this word, my tongue felt stiff, as if it hadn't moved in a long time. He didn't rush to approach, as if waiting for my reaction. I looked down at myself, the porcelain shell transforming into pale, delicate skin, gradually flushing with color. This was not an illusion. I really, truly, have become human again. Your Highness, are you planning to turn me into a porcelain doll again? I lowered my gaze and chuckled softly. Not a hint of jest in my tone. Zhao Qiyuan was taken aback for a moment, then stood up and slowly approached me, as if afraid of startling me, or as if fearing I might flee the next instant. He reached out his hand, hovering beside my shoulder, yet never dared to let it fall. You, what have you remembered? His voice was low and earnest, his gaze shifting with emotion. I did not answer him immediately, only stared fixedly at him, watching the light in his eyes shift from tension to barely contained excitement, then to an uncontrollable tremble. I think I should have been very angry, but seeing him so earnest, as if he would die right there in the hall if I didn't answer him. So I turned my head aside as if relieved, not looking at him, and spoke softly. I remember some of it. He jolted violently, his voice suddenly hoarse. What? I also wanted to know the truth, so I held nothing back and told him everything. You've worked hard, madam. When Zhao Qiyuan said this, his gaze was excessively gentle, but a chill ran through my entire body. I know, it wasn't you that night. Zhao Qiyuan spoke word by word, finally telling me the truth. The night you ran away from the wedding, I knew, you had changed. You smile so unfamiliar, with not a trace of me in your eyes. The way you look at me is like you're looking at a mad dog. Later, I sought out all the great masters in the world, asking them how to bring you back. Everyone said I was crazy. Only Master Tusha told me that there is a soul from another world inside your body. My heart went numb. You killed her. Zhao Qiyuan smiled. Kill her? No. I couldn't bear to harm your body. Master Tusha set up an altar and used spiritual fire to drive her away. Unfortunately, the Empress Dowager intervened, and the ritual went wrong. Your body was buried in the fire. I felt a chill run through my body. So I died once. Yes, he nodded, his expression filled with guilt and panic. Later, I discovered a secret technique called soul-returning porcelain. As long as your soul hasn't dispersed, I can forge a porcelain body and bring you back. My heart is pounding like a drum, though it's a bit hard to believe. He doesn't seem to be lying. He fired porcelain, offered his soul, set up schemes, and feigned madness all for me. putting on an entire show. All the madness and cruelty I thought I saw were just his fear of me leaving again, my lips trembling. I couldn't speak. The next morning, the clouds outside the window hung oppressively low, as if holding back a rain that refused to fall. I had turned back into a porcelain doll. Zhao Qiyuan stood by the window, holding a jade comb, gently smoothing my hair, stroke by stroke. My intuition told me that his calmness today felt off. The palace doors suddenly swung open. A servant knelt at the foot of the steps, his voice trembling as he spoke. "Your Highness, the crown princess has returned to the palace." I shuddered, and the voice that had once forced its way into my mind suddenly resurfaced. "I am in love with Prince Qi. I don't want your man. Is she back again?" I could almost sense the slight pause in Zhao Qiyuan's palm, yet he did not turn around, only gently set down the jade comb and said softly, "Let her wait. After half an hour, invite her in." The attendant acknowledged and withdrew, yet at that moment, for the first time, I truly saw another side of Zhao Qiyuan. He leaned down, whispering close to my ear, "Rest assured, my lady, I will reclaim everything for you. I will not let her leave alive." Half an hour later, Zhao Qiyuan had changed into a dark blue robe embroidered with gold, reclining by the couch, his expression clear and bright. The door creaked open with a long, drawn-out sound, and the curtain's shadow swayed. She had arrived, still the same familiar appearance. When the palace attendants addressed her as Crown Princess, she naturally accepted the title. Her crimson lips curved into a faint smile. Dressed in fiery red robes, each step blooming like a lotus, she looked at Zhao Qiyuan, a hint of probing hidden in her eyes. Brother A Yuan, no wonder Zhao Qiyuan noticed something was off that night. Such a disgusting term of endearment, I could never bring myself to say it. Zhao Qiyuan didn't respond. Instead, he sized her up from head to toe before standing up, his tone gentle, "You're back. Deep affection doesn't last long. What great acting skills." She smiled and took 2 steps closer. "Are you still angry?" Zhao Qiyuan didn't respond directly. Instead, he reached out to tuck a stray strand of hair behind her ear, his voice low, "It's good that you're back, after leaving like that. I thought you weren't planning to come back." She lowered her head, wearing a look of guilt, yet her eyes kept secretly scanning the surroundings. Zhao Qiyuan invited her to sit by the couch, personally poured a cup of tea, and handed it to her. However, she deliberately did not take it, speaking in a coquettish tone. "Brother Ah Yuan, feed me." "Okay." Zhao Qiyuan smiled softly, brought the cup close to her lips, and said word by word, "Whatever you want, I can give it to you. As long as you don't run away from the wedding this time." She was taken aback for a moment, then a flattering smile spread across her face, yet I noticed Zhao Qiyuan's fingertips tightening slightly, as if the teacup might shatter at any moment. One was acting as if their love ran deep as the sea, the other was pretending to have a change of heart. Both wore smiles on their lips, but their eyes were filled with fire. She raised her glass with a smile. "This time, I'm not leaving." Zhao Qiyuan's eyes darkened. "That's good." In the next moment, he gently turned his gaze toward where I stood, and the moment his eyes fell upon me, it felt like an arrow piercing my heart. Zhao Qiyuan was making me watch as he slowly, bit by bit, took back everything that belonged to me. A very ordinary night. It was as if someone had pried open a crack in my memory, and everything came flooding back. I finally remembered everything. On that battlefield at dusk, I rode my horse, broke through the enemy lines, and took the flying arrow for Zhao Qiyuan. I remember he was as thin as a stick, yet he gritted his teeth and refused to cry out in pain. I remember handing him the medicine and saying, "If you survive, remember that I saved your life today." I was once a female general of Dakian. I finally understood why, when I woke up in the modern world, everything felt so unfamiliar to me. That was the place I was forced to live after she pushed me out of my body. Hospitals, sickbeds, cold white lights. It took me a long time to adjust. It turns out I didn't lose my memory, it's just that I never belonged to that world in the first place. I am not a modern person. I am Mingchun of the Great Qian dynasty. I am the crown princess of the current dynasty, the true master of that body, and she is merely a wandering soul from another world, sharing my name and surname, who somehow strayed into my body. I recall the days when I traveled to the modern world, where my family there treated me with great kindness as well. I don't understand. Are these people not enough to be her attachments? Why is she willing to occupy my body, my life, and my loved ones in a strange world, leaving me to dwell in another world, living a life that is not my own? After regaining my memories, I could no longer stand by and watch Zhao Qiyuan being affectionate with her, but I was still made of porcelain, confined to staying quietly in the room, watching Zhao Qiyuan personally pour tea for her, tuck her hair behind her ear, and speak to her in a soft, gentle tone. Her eyes and brows were full of tenderness, carrying the shyness and coquettishness of a young girl. My heart was in turmoil, yet I didn't even know what exactly I was so troubled about. Watching Zhao Qiyuan's gaze wander over her, then lightly return to me, I know, his relationship with her is just a pretense, to make me return to my own body, and to gain her complete trust, until she willingly follows him into the temple of sacred sound. The temple of Buddhist chants was as still as stagnant water. She stood in the center of the main hall. Slightly uneasy, Zhao Qiyuan, dressed in black, stood with his hands behind his back, looking down at her. Taoist priest Choo sat with his eyes closed, the 8 trigram spiritual array slowly rotating before him. Since you come from another world, why are you so fixated on this? The Taoist priest suddenly spoke, his voice aged yet leaving no room for doubt. She was startled but quickly composed herself and replied, if Priest Choo only intends to deceive people with empty words, it would be better for you to leave as soon as possible. I think it's you who should leave. Zhao Qiyuan's expression suddenly changed. With a single stride, he stepped forward and grabbed her by the neck. Her eyes flickered slightly. Brother A Yuan, I don't know what you're talking about. Zhao Qiyuan was utterly enraged. Do you remember the day you arrived? She froze. On our wedding night, you said you liked the Prince of Qi. He chuckled softly. And you ran away from the marriage that very night. Her face turned deathly pale. Didn't you already forgive me? I knew long ago that you were not my Ming-chun, but I can't kill you. She shook her head, retreating in panic. I didn't. I just wanted to live like a human being. I slipped out from Zhao Qiyuan's sleeve and struggled to pry his fingers open. Zhao Qiyuan then released his grip. In the side room, I could hear every word clearly between Zhao Qiyuan and Master Choo. Unless the one possessing my body willingly departs, no matter how forcefully the spell is cast, I can only briefly return to that body. So I took the opportunity to stand on Zhao Qiyuan's hand, trying to persuade her to let go of her obsession. I don't know why you don't want to return to the modern world, nor do I understand why you're so fixated on my body. But your parents and loved ones are hoping every day for you to wake up, and your little cat, they all miss you so much. A flicker of shock passed through her eyes, quickly followed by welling tears. You're lying. They only favor my sister. No one likes me. No one cares about how I feel. I just want to be loved. I stared at her steadily. It's not that they don't love you. You've just never tried to see their love. She suddenly snatched me away from Zhao Qiyuan's grasp. Her knuckles turning white from the force, her eyes filled with madness and hatred. Shut up. Shut up. You don't understand anything. Who are you to tell me how to live? She lifted me high, her porcelain white fingertips trembling slightly in the light. In the next instant, her slender hand hurled me fiercely toward the bluestone floor in front of the hall. Zhao Qiyuan practically lunged forward, catching me steadily just as I was about to hit the ground. Yet all I heard was that sharp crack sound. It wasn't me who broke, it was her own hand that hit the floor tiles, and blood immediately began to flow, yet she seemed to feel nothing, throwing her head back in a wild, hysterical laugh. As she laughed, she suddenly began to cry, sobbing until she could barely catch her breath. In her eyes, there was nothing but despair and hatred on the verge of collapse. Why are you still here? Why does no one ever love me? You should just die. It would be best if you disappeared forever. The scene quickly spiraled out of control. Taoist master, quickly, I shouted to Choo, force the spell to return me to my own body. Actions speak louder than words. I want her to go back and see for herself the world she thought had long abandoned her. Choo opened his eyes, his expression grave, his fingers swiftly forming hand seals. The spirit array suddenly began to rotate, and a pillar of bluish-white light shot up into the sky, enveloping her along with my porcelain doll-like body. Let her see clearly. Let her go back and see how much the people around him truly love her. I deliberately shouted for her to hear, wanting her to see the scene of herself being loved. 3 days later, I turned back into a porcelain figure, I knew she had returned. The afternoon sunlight spilled over the bluestone steps, dappled and serene. Last night when I went to sleep, I was wearing a pale moon-colored thin gown, but when she came in, she was wearing that bright red wedding dress, with a hairpin slanting in her hair. Only her steps were lighter, and her eyes no longer brimmed with hostility. She looked down at me, her eyes not filled with jealousy or hatred, nor with resentment or malice, but with an indescribable melancholy. "Don't worry," she spoke, her voice low, surprisingly soft. "I came to say goodbye." The wind swept through the pine forest outside the hall, carrying with it the faint scent of incense. She stood before me, quietly watching me for a long while, as if trying to recognize me, or perhaps to recognize herself. "That day when you told me to go back, I thought you just wanted me to see how little I was needed." She smiled, but there was no trace of smugness in that smile. Instead, it held a hint of grievance. "But I saw it, they all truly love me." She said she woke up in her modern body. She saw her mother holding her hand all night without sleep, her father with much grayer hair, smoking at the hospital entrance until dawn. That home she always thought favored only her sister had actually never given up on her. She said she saw the little kitten curled up by the hospital bed, whimpering in its throat as if crying. And my sister, on my birthday, she secretly bought a cake all by herself, lit the candles, and said she hoped I would recover soon. Her voice choked up, and she raised her hand to wipe the corner of her eye, but she smiled. "It turns out it wasn't that no one loved me, it was just that I refused to believe it." She looked at me with panic and guilt. "Thank you. Without you, I might never have understood these things. I shouldn't have come to take what was yours." I looked at her, feeling a surge of mixed emotions in my heart. I had once hated her for taking my identity, forcing me to remain trapped and motionless in a porcelain shell. But at that moment, I suddenly felt a sense of release. We are all people who have lost our way, struggling too long in the whirlpool of fate, unable to see the path we came from. In the end, she is not a bad person, just too lonely, too eager to be loved. She looked at me, then a faint smile lifted the corners of her lips. Then, "Goodbye." She turned to leave but paused for a moment. "There's one more thing," she said softly. "Prince Chi, he's not what you think either." I was slightly taken aback, my gaze fixed. "Be careful of him." She said only this before walking out of the hall without looking back. The spirit array flickered faintly the moment she left, as if someone was seeing her off. Night slowly fell, the clouds at the horizon as dark as ink. I lay on the soft couch, my body gradually growing warmer, a flush of color slowly creeping up to my fingertips. It was as if an invisible shell had been peeled away, and the true body was finally about to return. Master Choo stood outside the door, his expression calm yet weary. He looked at me without a word, as if confirming whether the soul within that porcelain shell had truly returned safely to its place. "The soul has returned to its rightful place, Your Highness, the Crown Prince can now rest assured." After saying this, he gently closed the palace door. I slowly opened my eyes, feeling my lips and mouth parched. Zhao Qiyuan had been sitting by the bedside, as if afraid that I would vanish the moment he blinked. He finally turned his head, and in that moment, I saw the redness at the corner of his eyes. "Madam, you've finally returned." His voice was low and hoarse, like a call brought back from a dream. I nodded gently, my throat choked, unable to speak. Zhao Qiyuan, however, seemed to let out a sigh of relief. He took my hand, his palm covering mine, trembling slightly. "I thought I would never see you wake up again." He lowered his head, his forehead pressed against the back of my hand, his breath scorching, as if carefully confirming something. "Isn't the Crown Prince insane?" I teased him jokingly. "I was pretending." He chuckled softly, then explained earnestly. "The Queen Mother forces me to take concubines. The Emperor Father demands I marry another. If I do not go mad, they will force me to give your place to someone else. Only a madman would have no one to fight over a porcelain doll with him." His gaze flickered slightly, and the emotions that had been suppressed for too long finally shattered. "But I think of you every day. During that time, I wrote a letter every day and tucked it into that wooden box you loved the most. In 3 years, I filled the entire box." I cupped his face. "Now you can give me the letter, my husband." He took out a letter that had long since yellowed from his chest and handed it before my eyes. "Madam, please take a look at this first. I'll go fetch the others." I reached out and took the letter, The paper was dry and stiff, its edges slightly charred, yet it had been preserved remarkably well. Early the next morning, I awoke in Chungning Palace. According to the palace attendants, this place was personally overseen by Zhao Qiuan, who claimed it was built for me over the course of 3 years. Yet I remember that after reading the first letter yesterday, I drifted into a deep sleep and had no idea when I was brought here. Outside, the morning light was gentle, and the wind rustled through the gauze curtains, causing the strands of hair by my ears to tremble slightly. I sat before the mirror, my fingertips brushing past the tassels at my temples, the bridesmaid, while drawing my eyebrows. Couldn't help but say with reddened eyes, "It's truly wonderful that your highness has awakened. His Highness sat by your bedside all night last night and left for court this morning without even having breakfast." I was taken aback. I had always thought of him as the lofty crown prince, aloof, incapable of love, and certainly not one to cling to someone for 3 years, but reality had just slapped me hard in the face. I turned to look and saw a palace attendant carefully carrying over a carved sandalwood box. It was the letter Zhao Qiuan mentioned. He really did write so many. I opened one of them. "Today I entered the court, the emperor is gravely ill, and the political winds in the court are treacherous. I had someone bring a potted peach tree into Chungning Palace, and the first flower has just bloomed on its branch. If you wake up, you will surely like it." Next letter. "The palace servants have purchased a lot of new furniture today and asked if I wanted to change the layout of your bedchamber as well. Don't worry, I didn't let them change it. I was afraid that if you ever came back, even your place of rest would look different, and you might feel unfamiliar and unsettled." Next letter. "Fifth brother asked me today if I ever regretted giving up my military power. I didn't answer him, but I want to tell you I don't regret it. She occupies your body but her heart belongs to fifth brother, so I must protect your physical form." My fingers tightened, and I accidentally creased a white mark on the corner of the paper. "Fifth prince, Prince Qi Zhaozhong. I almost forgot about him." I looked up at the matchmaker and asked, "Tell me, how has His Highness been living all these years?" Bitao whispered to me, "Your Highness, His Highness forbids us from speaking of it." The others were stunned for a moment. Then an elderly matron knelt down with tears in her eyes. "Actually, His Highness the Crown Prince has suffered quite a bit of injustice over the years." Bitao hesitated for a moment, but then went on to tell me a great deal. After her ladyship passed away, everyone in the palace said the Crown Prince had gone mad with grief, spending all his days seeking immortality and the path to enlightenment. Later, His Highness somehow obtained a porcelain doll, sleeping and eating with it every day, even talking to it, but only we know that His Highness is not mad. The matron continued, "His Highness goes to the courtyard alone every morning to practice swordsmanship, never missing a single day. That's how he managed to avoid those assassination attempts. And the edict to annul the engagement with her ladyship, His Highness knelt in the court for 7 days straight to stop it." I was momentarily speechless, a lump forming in my throat. Suddenly, a commotion arose outside the hall, and someone shouted, "The Prince of Qi has arrived." I abruptly stood up, realizing that the unease in my heart was indeed not unfounded. Prince Qi, Zhaozhong, pushed the door open and entered, a smile in his eyes that did not reach their depths. "Sister-in-law, you seem to be recovering well." Zhaozhong took a few steps closer, gripping my wrist tightly. "Sister-in-law, didn't you say you admired me? Why are you abandoning me now?" Zhaozhong roared like a madman. "But it doesn't matter. If you choose me now, I can still spare your life." I understood. It turns out, from the very beginning, he was not that gentle and refined idle prince. Zhaozhong's hand suddenly tightened, as if he wanted to crush my wrist bone. He gritted his teeth and said, "You were kneeling before me, saying you would rather betray the world than marry him." I gazed at him quietly, but a storm of thoughts raged in my mind. "You've mistaken me for someone else." I spoke slowly, my tone calm, yet unable to suppress the slight trembling of my fingertips. Zhaozhong froze. "What did you say?" I tried to explain this bizarre and absurd matter to him. "The person you're talking about isn't me." I stared into his eyes. "She's not from this world, she just borrowed my body." Zhaozhong seemed not to understand, his throat moving slightly, his tone chillingly cold. "Do you take me for a fool? Back then, you fled from the marriage and ran to my palace, staying awake all night in front of my desk. You said your brother didn't understand you, That only I was worthy of you, Zhao, I said again. That person truly wasn't me. A shadow gradually clouded his eyes, as if he had heard something utterly absurd and laughable. I won't force you to do things you don't like anymore. Please forgive me. Okay. I knew that no matter how much I explained, given his current state, he wouldn't be able to accept it, but I still roared, making him quiet down, and tried to calmly explain the ins and outs of the incident to him. He suddenly pushed me away with a slap, his voice shrill. I don't believe it. You're lying. I'll kill you. I nearly stumbled, but was steadied by a familiar figure. Zhao Qiyuan's gaze sharpened as he shielded me behind him, his eyes fixed on Zhao. She is your imperial sister-in-law, he declared, word by word. Not the one you're looking for, Zhao sneered, his eyes shifting between us. Then murmured softly under his breath, then, the person I liked never actually existed. Suddenly, rapid footsteps echoed from outside the hall. Zhao gaze completely changed. He kicked the hall door open and said coldly, since you're not her, then you might as well be destroyed too. Zhao Qiuan said no more, only drawing the sword at his waist to stand in front of me. Blood splattered onto the palace steps. The palace servants wailed, and the sounds of killing outside Changning Palace drew closer. Zhao Qiuan's figure remained in front of me all along. Although he practiced swordsmanship, he had never been the most skilled in martial arts, but he blocked all the swords that came slashing toward me. Zhao Qiuan, I called out to him. He didn't turn around, only responded softly, don't be afraid. Actually, what I wanted to say was to give me the sword. After all, I used to be a general, but seeing him fighting frantically, I swallowed the words that were on the tip of my tongue. Finally, he roared out, be careful. As soon as the words fell, a spear thrust forward. Zhao Qiuan blocked it with one hand, but his back was struck heavily. He staggered, blood seeping through his armor. I could no longer care about anything else. With one hand, I took his sword, and with the other, I supported him, gritting my teeth and shouting angrily, are you insane? He smiled, his voice so soft that only I could hear it. I was afraid you would leave again. I won't. I held him tightly. Trust me this once. This time, I won't leave again. The sounds of fighting outside gradually faded, followed by the commands of the Zhenghua army. The Imperial Guard commander shouted, Prince Qi is guilty of treason, with irrefutable evidence, seize him. Zhao Zhong was dragged into the hall under restraint, looking utterly disheveled, yet his eyes remained fixed on me. I watched him calmly and spoke in a composed tone, let go of your obsession, she won't be coming back. Zhao Zhong let out a low chuckle, finally lowered his head, and ceased all resistance. 3 days later, a general amnesty was declared in the capital. Zhao Zhong was deposed and exiled to the northern border. The sky was just beginning to lighten, the morning sun not yet fully climbing over the palace walls. As a thin mist lingered around the eaves of the palace, Zhao Qiuan leaned against the edge of the couch, his face pale, the hair at his temples slightly disheveled. His wounds had not yet fully healed, still wrapped in a thin layer of gauze. Yet he stubbornly propped himself up, ignoring the repeated pleas of the imperial physician and refusing to take medicine or sleep. The palace attendants tried to persuade him a few times, but he waved them all away. I want to personally go and bring my wife back to the Eastern Palace, he said, his tone gentle, yet his eyes brimmed with a stubborn light. Just as I stepped out from inside the door, he happened to stand up. He looked up at me, and with that one glance, he could no longer look away. I am not dressed in fine attire today, only wearing a simple white light garment, and my hair is not styled in an elaborate bun. Yet Zhao Qiuan gazes at me intently, and I feign a scolding tone, why aren't you resting properly? He smiles with a touch of naive charm, yet it feels genuine. I wanted to personally welcome you back to the Eastern Palace. I lower my gaze and step closer, offering him a hand to steady himself. His hand covered mine, no longer as scorching as before, but rather carrying a hint of coolness, yet gripping it extremely tightly. I thought you would resent me, I said, my voice as light as a whisper, almost scattered by the morning breeze. He looked at me, his eyes clear as water, and gently shook his head. If you wish to make it up to me. He paused, his tone slowly falling, then, accompany me in bowing to heaven and earth once more. I was stunned. He had already lowered his eyes with a smile, as if afraid I would refuse, pretending to speak casually. On the day of the grand wedding, the sky was brilliantly bright. The court received congratulations from all directions. With drums and music resounding through the long streets, and crowds of people lining the roads to witness the ceremony, I donned my red wedding gown and walked calmly onto the palace path. Ahead, the gates of the Golden Swan Hall slowly opened. Amidst the crimson curtains, Zhao Qiuan, clad in a red robe, emerged from the light. He had grown somewhat thinner than before, yet he carried an added air of steadiness. In his eyes, there was not a trace of doubt, only tenderness and certainty. The red silk fluttered in the wind, with heaven and earth as witnesses, and ceremonial music resounded in unison. Amidst the gaze of the multitude, we stood side by side and bowed together. After 3 bows, he reached out to take my hand. This hand, once stained with blood, wounded, and repeatedly upheld the nation, now with just a gentle grasp, made me feel as at ease as ever. The palace lights burned through the night, with thousands of lanterns hanging from the towers, and celebratory cheers echoed throughout the entire imperial city. Yet, within Changning Palace, it was a scene of quiet tranquility. He changed out of his wedding robes, put on his everyday clothes, and sat quietly in the hall, waiting for me to change and return. As I approached, he did not speak, but simply reached out to pull me to the edge of the couch, gently embracing me. That night, we did not speak much, but simply leaned against each other. As if using silence to mend the cracks of the past, the porcelain figure still stood quietly in the corner of the palace, carefully placed on the glass table. Now it is no longer needed, yet it is still carefully preserved. After hearing the 2 stories above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.